So next topic is the useful torque or the shaft torque. Okay. In the last class, we have seen the gross torque developed in the armature TA. Okay, so that is the torque that is developed in the armature, okay, due to the mechanical force exerted circumferentially or tangentially. But that is not the all torque available to drive the load. Okay. So next point is shaft torque or useful torque. Or useful torque. It doesn't mean that the torque developed in armature is not useful. Okay, this is TSH. Okay. Now, this is the general rotating machine structure, motor structure. Okay. So whatever the torque that is developed, okay, is developed in this armature. Now this is armature. Let us consider this is armature. Okay. This is armature. Now the load is connected somewhere here. Suppose this is the load. So whatever the torque is developed in this armature, this is TA. Now the useful torque should be made available is at this load. Now you may say, sir, what is the difference that this is on the same shaft? This is on the same shaft. Whatever the torque developed here, it will be transferred to load, but it won't happen that way. See, we have seen, even you have studied this in the transformers also when you are studying the efficiency. My output power is not equals to input power. Okay, output power is not equals to input power. So output is always equals to input minus losses. And these losses are bound to occur in the machines. Whether it is a DC machine or a AC machine, a transformer or a generator, okay, or a motor, whatever may be the machine we may be using, these losses are bound to occur. So these losses are nothing but the food to the machines. Exactly to tell, we consume food. When we consume food, not all the food that we consume will get converted into the muscular energy or whatever energy that is used by the body to do the work externally. The energy that is totally generated by the food what we take, some part of that energy is consumed by body also to make itself alive, to make itself operate. So those are that we can say like losses. So these losses are the inherent properties of any machine which will consume or which will demand some amount of energy from the input, okay, so that the operation of the machine is remaining intact. For example, we all have seen copper losses. Okay, we have seen copper losses. So what are these copper losses? I square R losses. If I make the resistance of conductor 0, copper losses will become 0. But practically I can't do this, we know. However, best conductor I may be choosing for construction of my system, some amount of practical value of resistance will exist in that conductor, and it will demand or it will oppose the flow of current. To maintain the flow of current in that resistance, some amount of input power or energy has to be invested there, which is not coming till output. So that we call it as loss. The same thing is happening at every part of the machine, not only one or two parts. Okay. So now observe, I have connected armature supply. I have connected armature supply. Field supply is given, that is a different part. Okay, let us not worry about field losses here. Let us concentrate only on armature losses. So when I have connected the armature to the uh, supply, so now armature is carrying current. Okay. Now armature is carrying current. So the current that is carried by the armature has already overcome the copper losses. So we don't think about copper losses now. Okay, so this current which is flowing into the armature is developing the torque Tm, sorry, or Ta, the torque that is developed Ta. This torque Ta is developed after the current has overcome the copper losses. After overcoming the copper losses, the remaining current is developing the torque Ta. But not only copper losses are present in the motor. The armature is nothing but a iron structure with slots on its outer periphery with conductors housed in it. So the iron structure will have iron losses. Okay? So we have iron losses in armature. See, iron losses will occur only in AC systems. DC systems, iron losses will not occur. But we know the current and voltage in the armature are AC. Okay? Behind the commutator, it is AC. Beyond the commutator, it is DC. Okay? So therefore, armatures are carrying alternating currents. Therefore, iron losses will occur in armature. Now, the current that is creating the armature torque Ta has overcome only the copper losses. It has not yet overcome the iron losses. This is one type of loss. Second type of loss that is present in the armature, because armature is a rotating structure, we have mechanical losses. Okay. So now this torque Ta, which is developed in the armature, has to overcome iron losses in armature, has to overcome mechanical losses in armature. Then, after satisfying these two losses in armature, the remaining torque is available to the load. That torque we call it as shaft torque or useful torque. So what is shaft torque? It is the torque available at load or available to load after iron losses and mechanical losses are satisfied by gross torque Ta. So did you now understand why I called this armature torque as gross torque? Okay. So the net torque that is available is the shaft torque. So shaft torque is known as a net torque. Gross torque is armature torque is known as gross torque. Okay, because out of that armature torque developed, some amount of torque is utilized to overcome the losses. So what is shaft torque now? This indicates shaft torque TSH is lesser than is lesser than armature torque TA by the amount of armature losses. By the amount of iron and mechanical loss exclusively, because copper loss are already overcome. Iron and mechanical loss. So what are these iron loss? Iron loss, we know hysteresis loss and eddy current loss, which are occurring in the system due to the flux density and frequency. But what are mechanical loss? Okay. So mechanical losses are friction and windage loss. We look into once again, mechanical losses are friction and windage loss. Okay. So friction and windage loss occur mechanically when the structure start rotating. Okay, or when the friction and windage loss are overcome, after that the structure starts rotating. Now friction is occurring in the bearings. Now these are bearings. You can observe the inner race of the bearing is connected to the shaft. Outer race of the bearing is connected to the stator. Okay, so bearing will be like this, right? Ball bearings or roller bearings. If the machine size is small, we use ball bearings. If the machine size is large, we use roller bearings. So this is inner race, inner circle that is fixed to shaft, which is free to rotate. Then outer race is connected to stator. Okay. Now there is a continuous friction between the inner race, ball and outer race. So friction losses occur in bearings. So in bearings we get friction losses. Then where do we get windage loss? Until and unless the friction is overcome, the rotor will not rotate, right? Yes. So when you want to move any body from one place to other place, will it move with minimum force if the body is heavy? So we have to overcome the friction, right? So therefore, the amount of power that is developed in the armature PA has to overcome these friction losses. Then what are windage loss? Where do we get windage losses? There is a large misconception that windage losses occur in windings. Windage loss do not occur in windings. In windings, we will get only one type of loss, that is copper loss. Windage loss occur in air gap. Here we get windage loss. You may ask, how come in air gap losses will occur? Remember, windage loss is a loss that is occurring due to the friction between the air in the air gap and the rotor surface. Windage loss, okay, is occurring because of the friction between air in the air gap and the rotor surface. Now we may be surprised. How come there can be a friction between a rotating heavy body and air? Okay. Why the friction occurs here in the air gap is because air gap is very small. Air gap is very small. It is a fraction of millimeter, even in the largest machine. Air gap is a fraction of millimeter practically, because of which the air is very much less. The amount of air present is very much less. And when the windings starts conducting the current, copper losses will occur, iron losses will occur. Okay, these all losses will heat the iron structures and winding structures, and that heat start getting dissipated to the outer atmosphere. Now, whatever the heat that is produced on the outer surface of the armature and the inner surface of the field will try to dissipate in the air gap, because of which the air starts getting heated up. And when a gas gets heated up, it expands in its volume. Because the space of the air gap is very small, the expanded air will be in high pressure, because of which the rotor starts experiencing some amount of opposition. Okay. Exactly, if you want to experience what windage losses are, many of us, we have traveled in metro. Okay, and if you stand near the tunnel in the metro station, where there are underground metro station in Majestic, railway station, KR Market and all, when the train arrives to the station, you will experience a large force of air coming out of the tunnel. Okay, did you experience this? Because tunnel is very restricted area, there is air present. Because of the moment of the train, there is a friction between that air and the surface of the train. Okay, and that you observe. If there is no, and you can observe. Okay, especially you can observe the size of the metro station. The area of metro station in the underground metro station is much bigger than the metro station that is normal metro station overhead. You can observe that, because whatever the air push has done by the train, it has to be completely what we can say flown out from the tunnel, and it needs a space. If sufficient engineering design is not done to manage that air pressure and air flow, there may be a physical blast of the tunnel only. Okay, or tunnel, if tunnel doesn't blast, train will catch fire, and this has happened in history. Okay, in the older tunnels, when they were poorly designed, they did not take care of the friction between air and the train, and many trains caught fire in the tunnels. Okay, later when it was observed, it was because of the heated air and the continuous friction between the air inside the tunnel and the train. The same thing is happening in the motor also. The air gap is very much minimum, and the rotor is rotating, which is dissipating heat. The air is also getting heated, because of which it will expand. Air will expand. Pressure is built up, because this is a closed container. Motor is a closed container. Pressure builds up. Because of large pressure of air, the rotor starts experiencing the opposition. So this is windage loss. If you keep the rotor outside in the outer atmosphere, even when we say suppose walk or run or ride the vehicles, we feel the air, but we don't experience the friction between we and air, because the space is very large. Here the space is very much restricted, therefore rotor will experience the friction, okay, with the air, and that friction is known as windage loss. And this has also to be overcome, and this is not a small loss. Okay, like I told, whether in the previous class we discussed it or not, or in the other class I told, if a rotating machine is incurring say about 100 watts of the loss, out of 100 watts, more than 50 to 60 watts are the mechanical losses. Mechanical losses take a major share of the losses. Okay, whereas electrical losses are minimum. That is the reason why transformer is having efficiency of 98% or above 95, because there are no moving parts. Whereas the induction motor is having efficiency of the max 70%. Now current energy efficient motors are up to 75 to 78 commercially. Okay, so mechanical losses play a vital role in the total amount of losses. They take a major share of losses. Now the torque that should be made available to the load should be should overcome these iron losses in the armature and mechanical losses in the armature. Okay, so therefore my TSH is equals to, I can write TA minus T loss. Okay, where T loss is torque required to overcome armature losses. Torque required to overcome armature losses. Okay. Now, how to get TSH? Now, observe TSH is the final output of the motor. TSH is the final output of the motor. The entire work has to be done to get this TSH sufficient to drive a particular load. Actually, the engineering design is reverse. I can't start from input. The design will start from output. Okay, I get what are the requirements at the output side. From there, I start the design. When you study design, you will get to know about that. Okay, so I know what is the output torque required, that is given, specified by the customer. From there, my design start till input. Okay, depending upon various factors. Now, the armature power can be given as, can say, armature power is PA is equals to 2 pi n TA divided by 60. This already we have seen in the previous equation. PA is equals to 2 pi n TA divided by 60. Similarly, or I can write TA is equals to, we move to next, or TA is equals to, I can write it as 60 by 2 pi into PA by n. This is nothing but 9.55 PA by n. Okay. So torque armature torque is equals to 9.55 times armature power divided by the speed. Similarly, what is shaft torque? Shaft torque is the output torque. So using this equation, similarly I can write it is P out is equals to output power. When I say a machine of 5 kilowatts, P out is 5 kilowatts. Remember one thing, any machine is mentioned with its output power, not input power. When I say 100 kVA transformer, that is output. When I say 10 megawatt generator, it is output. When I say 10 kilowatt motor, it is output. Okay, it is always output. Any device that is rated with power is always the output power. Okay, we say 10 lamps, 10 watts lamp, it is output power. Okay, so whatever the wattage you see in any specification of electrical device, it is output power. And whatever the voltage rating you see, that is input voltage. Okay, for other devices, for generator, it is output voltage. Okay, so that is we should understand. So I can write P out is equals to 2 pi n by 60. Which torque should come now here? PA is the armature power, therefore armature torque. P out is the output power, therefore output torque, TSH, or TSH is equals to 9.55 P out divided by N. So this is the shaft torque. Okay, Newton meter. Okay, the concept is very simple. Okay, but the thing is, it is important. You should understand these fundamentals thoroughly. That is the reason why I am going a bit slowly. and why I am many a times invoking fundamentals and dealing at a very fundamental stage. Okay, because these are very important concepts which you need not only to study a design subject in forthcoming semester, but also to understand the behavior of the machine. Okay, so if we don't know what is exactly the torque, what is exactly the power, what are the losses, then it is not knowing machine at all. That is important. All other things are mathematical. Okay, whatever the examples, what we see, all these are mathematical. Okay, you can practice the mathematics, but concepts should be understood. So once you understand the concepts, even the mathematics is much more understood, and the logic you can apply in solving the problems, it will be much better. Yeah, this is all about the shaft torque. Any doubts so far? Okay, we'll move ahead. Speed of DC motor. Speed of DC motor, we will try to establish a relationship between the speed and back EMF and currents in this topic. Okay. Speed of DC motor. Okay. Now we have the voltage equation. We have voltage equation. V is equals to EV plus IRA. There are various other drops also in the motor. Brush contact drop, armature reaction drop. Momentarily, we are neglecting those just to simplify the way of understanding. Okay, so IRA is not the only drop. Okay? There is a brush contact drop. Brush is continuously in contact with the armature conductor and the commutator segment. Therefore, there exists a resistive drop between the contact of brush and commutator segment, brush and armature conductor. So there is a brush contact drop, which is very small, but still it exists. In sometimes in examples, we should consider that. Okay. No. EB V equal to EB plus IRA, and EB is equals to V minus IRA. EB is equals to V minus IRA. We have also, see, EB I can find in two ways. Either I can use EB equal to V minus IRA if I know input voltage, current and resistance. Also, EB is its basic equation from first principle. It is phi Zn by 60 into P by A. It is from first principle. Okay. Slightly I will rearrange this equation. So EB is equals to, I will write it as or yeah, EB is equals to, I will write it as phi into N. Next Z into P divided by 68. So the terms inside the bracket, the quantities inside the bracket are constants. Once the machine is constructed, number of conductors, number of poles, parallel paths will remain constant. I have a scope of varying only these two, speed and flux. So EB is proportional to flux and speed, or speed is proportional to EB by flux. This is very, very, very important relation. You should always remember in case of DC machines. Okay. This relation will explain you why the speed increased in a DC motor when you varied the field rheostat of DC motor in previous experiments, last some experiments. What we did in many of the alternator experiments. Okay. To take the alternator to rated speed, I started the DC motor using 3-point starter. Then to bring the alternator to rated speed, I brought the motor to the rated speed, that is 1500 RPM. How did I do that? That I did by using the field rheostat connected in the field of DC motor. And initially, that field rheostat was at cutout position or minimum position. Okay, so that operation is because of this relation. There we did not explain you because you did not study yet this relation. So this relation is very, very, very important in deciding the speed of DC motor, whether shunt, series, or compound. Okay, so let us take this as equation A. So what we can observe here, the speed is directly proportional to back EMF and inversely proportional to flux. Okay, the speed is directly proportional to back EMF and inversely proportional to flux. Now what happens in shunt motor? For shunt motor, okay. Now if I vary the armature current, when do I vary the armature current? When the load is varied. If load is varied, armature current varies. Now observe, this EB is of equation V minus IRA is completely depending upon the load current. Why? Because my input voltage V and armature resistance RA are constants. Okay. So EB depends on IA. We can take a quick reference here. EB, I cannot say proportional. EB depends on IA, as V and RA are constants. Okay, V and RA are constants. Now, when the load varies, EB varies. When EB varies, speed varies. Okay, now I want to establish a relation between two speeds in terms of EB. Okay, you can take let IA1 and IA2 be two armature currents at two different loads. Then what I get? EB1 is equals to V minus IA1 RA. You can't say RA1. Okay, it is same. And EB2 is equals to, it is V minus IA2 RA. Okay. Because EB1 and EB2 are different, back EMFs are changing because of change in current. Okay, speeds will also change. Therefore, N1 is proportional to EB1 by phi. I don't take phi1. Why? I will tell you. N2 is proportional to EB2 by phi. Okay. Now, shunt motor is on. This is armature. This is shunt field. Now I am applying the input voltage. Input voltage is assumed to be constant under all the conditions. Okay. Every time we need not to mention it. This is IL. This is ISH and this is IA. Now, what is the voltage across field winding? It is V, and RSH is constant. So, my ISH is equals to V divided by RSH. So, flux is produced by this field winding. So, this flux phi is proportional to ISH. And here ISH is constant. Because V is constant, RSH is constant. Therefore, flux is constant. In DC shunt motor, flux is constant. Okay. Therefore, DC shunt motor is known as constant flux motor. DC shunt motor is known as constant flux motor. Okay. Therefore, I don't have phi 1 and phi 2 here. It is fine. No. Taking ratio, it is N2 by N1 is equals to EB2 by EB1. N2 by N1 is equals to EB2 by EB1. So this is one more important relation you have to remember. Let this be equation B. Let this be equation B. Okay. Now, if load is varied, then I get different speeds. What if load is not varied? Okay. This is one case where if load varies, speed varies. Why it varies? Already we have seen in the significance of back EMF. Load torque requirement changes, therefore speed changes. Now, if load is constant, okay, if load is constant, how to deal this with this is no doubt on any motor, if load is constant, speed is constant, but I don't want to prove it here. Okay, we will keep this point, leave this point here only. Okay, what if load is constant? Let us consider this equation practically. Okay. EB is equals to V minus IRA. Okay. Now, RA is very small. RA is very small. It is sometimes fraction of ohm, less than 1 ohm. Then what about IRA? IRA is much lesser than V. If RA is say 0.5 amperes, V is 220 volts. Sorry, RA is 0.5 ohms, V is 220 volts. Even if current is 10 amperes. So what is IRA? 10 amperes into 0.5 is 5 volts. So 220 minus 5, 215, which is nearly equal to 220. So is this IRA making a much difference in this V minus IRA? Practically. Okay. So since R is very small, IRA is very much lesser than V. Therefore, V minus IRA is nearly equal to V. And EB is nearly equal to V. And EB is nearly equal to V. That is, EB is almost constant. EB is almost constant. Now coming to this relation, therefore, N is proportional to 1 by 5. Therefore, N is proportional to 1 by 5, or EB is EB by 5. Now, EB is also remaining constant. Phi is already a constant for DC shunt motor, okay, which is proportional to constant by a constant. Then what should be speed? Therefore, speed is almost constant. Okay, because EB is almost constant. It will vary. I don't say it won't vary. It will vary, but the variation is very small. EB minus EB1 minus EB2 or EB2 minus EB1 is very small. Okay. So DC shunt motors are known as constant speed motors. Hence, DC shunt motors are known as constant speed motors. Okay, this is an important conclusion. It is known as constant speed motors. What about DC series motor now? Or series motor? Okay. Now the same relation, N proportional to EB by 5. Okay. For series motor, EB1 equals to V minus IA1 RA. Okay. And EB2 is equals to V minus IA2 RA. V minus IA2 RA. From this equation, N1 is proportional to EB1 by 5, phi 1. N2 is proportional to EB2 by phi 2. Here I have taken phi 1 and phi 2. Why? Because series motor carry the field current same as that of armature current. And armature current is large when it is driving the load. So I cannot neglect, or I cannot get the constant flux operation in DC series motor. Okay, I cannot get constant flux operation in DC series motor. Okay, so here phi is proportional to IA. If load is 0, phi is 0. If load is maximum, phi is maximum. Okay, so the magnetic field or the flux produced in DC series motor is always proportional to the armature current. It won't remain constant. Therefore, DC series motors are known as variable flux motors. DC series motors, on the contrary of DC shunt motors, are known as variable flux motors. Okay, so therefore I can take the ratio I can take N2 by N1 is equals to EB2 by EB1 into phi 1 by phi 2. Okay, since phi is proportional to Ia, I can write N2 by N1 is equals to EB2 by EB1 into I1 by or IA1 by IA2. IA1 by IA2. So this is about the speed variation in DC series motor and DC shunt motor. Because the speed is depending upon the armature current, the DC series motor is known as variable flux and variable speed DC motors. Okay. So DC series motors are variable flux or variable speed motors. So this is all about the torque developed, the shaft torque, available torque, torque developed in the armature, torque available to drive the load, speed of DC motors. Okay, any doubts so far?
No, sir.
Okay, so in the next class, we will solve few examples on the things what we have seen in tomorrow's tutorial class. Okay, then we'll move to the characteristics of DC motors, which is very important topic to know, to study, and also to design. Okay, so with this, we will end today's session. Please don't leave the class. I will take the attendance physically.